Business Sidekick.
Hello guys, here's Justina, live chat content writer, and this is Business Sidekick. My today's guest is Sançar Sahin, the director of marketing at Typeform, and we're talking about the science of gaining feedback from customers. Gaining feedback is incredibly important in keeping conversion rate high, that's for sure, but it makes your customers feel they're important for you and turns them into loyal customers. So, what are the most important questions you should ask your customers? Should you also talk with your employees? How to create a communication strategy? How to make relationship with a customer more personal? Listen to this interview and you'll get to know.
Business Sidekick.
Thanks a lot for accepting my invitation. It's a great pleasure to have you in Business Sidekick.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
All right, so can you please tell me something about yourself and your role in Typeform?
Sure. So about myself, I live in Barcelona, sunny Barcelona. So I've got the beach right next door. So I like to spend as much time as possible outside. I've got my old dog, 13-year-old dog. So I like to take her for walks. It takes me about 3 or 4 hours to do what should take about 10 minutes. So that's a great way to spend my time.
That's cute.
Yeah. I mean, I like her. Yeah, and so I'm the director of marketing at Typeform. Typeform is a platform for building a variety of different use cases. So think anything where you need to ask people for information, and they need to submit that information back to you. So think of use cases such as contact forms, landing pages, surveys, feedback forms, quizzes, even payment pages, for example. Anything where you're asking a question and somebody's responding to you online. The difference is with Typeform compared to some other platforms is that what we're doing is mixing the human-centered approach and the conversational approach of, let's say, email and chat platforms with the data structuring capabilities of a standard web form. Mm-hmm. So, just to give you an example, if you wanted to ask 1,000 people, let's say you want to ask 1,000 people where they want to go for lunch tomorrow, which restaurant they want to go to. What you could do is take to email or, WhatsApp or Messenger or something like that. You could send that message to 1,000 people and say, hey guys, we're going to go for lunch tomorrow. Where should we go? Which restaurant should we go to? Mm-hmm. You can be yourself. You can be very personal. You can be very conversational. You speak in your own tone, in your own language. But the problem comes when you get the information back. If 1,000 people are sending you, their different suggestions for a restaurant to go to tomorrow, it's going to be very hard to structure and analyze that information and make a decision on where to go. So, as businesses that scale, we've kind of been pushed into using web forms to gather this type of information. The problem is what we've done is we've compromised a lot on our conversational human-centered approach. So we stop talking to people like human beings. So what we're doing at Typeform is trying to mix those two extremes. The ability to structure the information you receive back and also the ability to remain conversational with your audience.
Mm-hmm. It sounds really interesting. And Typeform is something much more than just surveys. And that's what you mentioned before. And I was wondering, what are use cases? You've mentioned a couple of them. And can you describe them?
A lot of people do believe that we're essentially a survey platform. And that, that's fine. A survey is a good use case. You can definitely create that with Typeform and be much more conversational and actually get better and more information back from your audience. So it's definitely a great use case. But it's by no means the only thing you can do with Typeform. So think of any digital situation where you need to ask people questions. And that doesn't just have to be customers. It could be your employees, for example. So we actually, we use, not surprisingly, we use Typeform a lot in Typeform. We're always sending Typeforms out to our employees, to our customers, to our blog readers, whoever it might be, to ask them questions. So to give you a couple of examples, once a quarter, we send out a 360-degree feedback Typeform to our employees to get information and feedback from our peers about how we're progressing in work. We send out engagement surveys to our employees once a quarter as well to understand if people are happy at work, if we're giving them the right resources, the right support to do well in their jobs. Something we do a lot is we send an NPS survey, so a Net Promoter Score survey to our customers. I think we send it 20 days after you've been a pro user, so you've had a chance to experience the product and really understand if it's the right thing for you. And we send out that survey and we basically ask, hey, would you recommend this to your colleagues or to your peers? And just that one question is extremely powerful. And with the information you get back from that can help you make big decisions, big organizational decisions. But you can create a quiz. A lot of people are creating quizzes with Typeform. Trello had this great example. We wrote about it on the blog, actually. They created a quiz for their employees, and the prize was a big holiday retreat, a big mansion on the beach somewhere for the winners to stay in. Yeah, that was a nice example. I think we should do something similar at Typeform. I mean, I recommend that your listeners check out the blog post. But in the case of Trello, they were organizing a company retreat. So I think they were taking the whole company out to somewhere, I think in Florida, to get the whole company together to make sure everyone's getting to know each other and, everyone's aligned with the company vision, etc. But they were putting everybody up in, relatively standard hotel rooms. But they had this one mansion that they could offer out to a few kind of...
lucky winners.
Exactly. And, I think they had the dilemma of, should we give this to management? Should we give this to star employees? Or should we give our employees the chance to actually engage with a fun experience, in this case, a quiz, and then, kind of give it away as a prize. So we're not just saying this is for this particular type of employee. So, no, I think it was just a fun way to engage with their employees. But I think that's the key word here, engagement. Mm-hmm. This is why businesses should be asking questions. Mm-hmm. They should be asking their employees questions and their customers questions a lot. They should keep that conversation going with everybody they deal with on a daily basis. Because that's how we learn. That's how we grow.
And speaking about questions, are there any the most important questions that business owners or companies should ask their employees?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure, it would be right for me to say what the correct questions are to ask.
And for example, based on your experience.
Yeah, I think the main thing you have to do is you have to really think about what information is going to help you make changes, and then only ask questions based on receiving that information. So I think a big mistake that I see people make is, they feel like they should be sending out a employee engagement survey, for example, but then they don't really understand why they're doing it or what they plan to do with the information once they have it. So I think the key is to really, ask yourself, what is it we want to do with this information? If we receive this particular type of feedback, are we ready to receive that feedback? If we get negative feedback, for example, are we going to do something about it? So I think you have to be asking questions that really help you take action. What those questions are depends on your organization, but I can tell you that some of the most useful questions that we ask internally are questions about our organizational structure and do people understand our company vision? Do they understand the bigger picture? And actually, recently, we found out that we had a few issues with company alignment. So from sending out this survey, we realized that everybody was very happy, with the office, the perks, their colleagues, the product. Everybody is very happy on the surface of things. But what we realized was we had a pretty big issue with alignment and, people understanding our greater purpose, why we're here, what we're trying to achieve as a company and a brand. So the answers from that survey actually helped us think of some very clear actions to resolve that. And in our case, we organized a big 2-day alignment event. We got everybody together to really communicate well, what our mission is, what our vision is. And since then, actually, things have improved a lot. But it is a continuous process. It's never a one-off thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. And speaking about questions, that was really important what you said, that you should have in mind what you want to achieve with your survey. I know that there is no answer to this question, but what are the best questions we should ask our customers? Or what is the most important knowledge we have to gain from our customers?
I like how you said there is no answer to this question, because it makes it easier for me not to answer it.
Oh, but you have to. You have to anyway.
Okay, I see. That's an interesting situation you put me in.
Yeah, I just believe that there are so many important things that we should know about our customers. So this is what I'm talking about.
Definitely. I think it depends at what stage they are, into your product. That really depends on the questions you ask. So, for example, you could ask, kind of market research. You could send out some market research-based questions before you launch a product or a feature. So you can ask people questions like, do you have a need for this feature or product? What are your main pain points at the moment around this area? What are you missing in your day-to-day? You can ask questions like this to really understand if you should be creating a particular feature or a particular product, for example, in the case of launching a company or a product. And then, once they're on board and, they're part of your product, you need to start asking them questions like, are we meeting your expectations? When you signed up for this particular product for a reason, have we managed to meet those expectations? Have you found the information you're looking for? Have you managed to resolve some of your pain points with our product? Do you think we're good value for money? Do you think there's something we could do to improve what we're offering you? And then, you can go all the way up to having really loyal customers who stick around, for a long time. And it's very important not to just get complacent and think, okay, these customers are with us now. There's no need to have an open dialogue with them. You should keep asking them questions and make sure that you're getting as much feedback from them as possible and understanding why they've decided to stick around with you. It's very, very important. It's a big mistake to only ask questions to dissatisfied customers. We should be talking a lot to dissatisfied customers as well to understand what it is we're doing well, to be able to continue doing that and to build on that. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that really answers your question.
It does.
Possible question.
Yes, it does. And I'm wondering if we should ask them open questions. From other side, I don't think we shouldn't ask them open questions, but I think it's really difficult to gather feedback from customers that have open questions, because every person will probably say something slightly different.
Yeah, good question. I mean, open and closed questions, again, I think it depends on your objectives and your own expectations for what you plan to do with that information. So if you're only looking to produce a number from and plot a number on a chart with the information that you receive from a feedback survey, for example, then, you have to be asking closed questions and you have to give people multiple choice and things like this. So you can aggregate that data and plot it on a chart and, understand trends. I think closed questions are great for trends. But look, I think if you have the opportunity to ask open questions, then I would say do it, because some of the best information comes from those open questions. And yes, it involves a bit more work. It involves reading through those responses. But what you're getting back is a response in somebody's own words, which is invaluable, really. You can buy that stuff actually, but you need to. I think you need to give some room to listen and read those answers, because it can be really invaluable.
And speaking about buying, I've heard that it's a really bad practice to encourage your customers to fill the form and give them a gift.
To give them a gift in exchange for filling in a form.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I mean, this is one way to get people to do it. What I would say is, you have to ask yourself why don't people want to fill in this form or this survey? Why do I have to give them an Amazon voucher or a Starbucks coupon or something to convince them to fill in this survey? And also, if I do give them some kind of reward, how does that affect the quality of the information they're giving me? Because if somebody says to me, hey, fill in this 15-minute survey and I'll give you a $50 Amazon voucher, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go through and I'm going to click the first answer that I see, on every question, just so I can get to the end and I can get my $50 Amazon voucher. So this is kind of where I think Typeform can also help, because what we're trying to encourage is, don't just create a form, a survey, or whatever it might be that you have to force people to fill in. Create a conversation where people actually want to engage with you. And I think conversation is the key. The more conversational you are, the more people will feel closer to you and the more likely they are to want to give you information. And this is what we find, that, when you can be conversational both in the way that you write and in the way you present the questions. So, for example, Typeforms only give you one question at a time, like a real conversation. People are much more likely to engage and want to fill in the form. So I would say, really think about why you're having to force or persuade people to fill in a particular form, survey, quiz, or whatever it might be.
That's really important question, And I've seen that on your website. You call Typeform a beautiful way to interact with humans. And I see that your mission is bringing personalized customer experience to life. But seriously, it sounds really weird to me that we can be personal in forms, in surveys, by questioning. You said that, one of things that make it more personal is asking one question at a time. Are there any good practices?
There are a few, practical tips that I could give. I don't think anything I would say here is that unique, but when you're asking people questions, keep it short, keep it relevant. Try and ask questions in different ways each time. There's in the survey world, there's something called respondent fatigue, which is basically where people get so bored with the process of filling in the survey that they just give up. They just drop off.
I know it. I'm always bored.
Exactly. I mean, this is something we're all familiar with. I mean, we've all filled in a form, a survey or something at some point in our lives, I'm sure. And we've all experienced that kind of dread of having to do it. So this is why, we need to get back to just having conversations with people. And there's no reason why our digital interactions have to be like a boring standard paper form. There's no reason why we can't speak to people like human beings. If you think of the evolution of websites, when the internet first came around, what was it? Like 100 years ago, right? I'm just joking. When the internet, first came around and websites first went up, what did they look like? They just looked like PDFs, essentially. They were like digital versions of something on paper. But then it evolved, we developed new coding languages, new formats, new design principles, and then we started adding different layers to websites, and we got interactive elements. And now, websites are insane. You can have highly interactive experiences on a website. But with forms, the same evolution process didn't happen. For some reason, we just accepted that forms in digital format are just what they look like on paper, but on a screen. And, I don't think that's good enough to accept that. We should allow that to evolve as well, especially as, it's a key interaction that we have with our customers, our audience, our employees, whoever it might be. So, it's only fair that we treat people like human beings when asking them for information.
Mm-hmm. And since I'm a content writer, so I was thinking about the way the questions are written, and I very often come across questions like, what could our company do to serve you better? Or something equally boring. And I think that the best way to ask questions is to ask, for example, tell me about your favorite experience you've had with us, or what is the one thing none of your vendors do that you wish they would, right? Because that's something much more personal than just asking questions about your boring company, right?
No, exactly. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. Is if you think of questions that are more personal, then you're gonna engage more with your customers. Mm-hmm. The question that standard question you mentioned that you see on every single form that you fill in about a company. You have to think to yourself, would I say this in real life? If I was the owner of a small mar and pa style shop where I have 10 customers a day, selling fruit and veg or something, and I actually talk to those customers on a daily basis, would I talk to them like that? Would I use those words? Would I have that level of formality?
Oh my God.
If the answer is no, then why would you do it in a digital form?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good clue. And you also mentioned that such interactions shouldn't be one go interactions. How to make it a part of customer service or awesome customer experience strategy?
Yeah, well, I think there's many ways, and it's something that does have to be consciously thought about, because it's very easy to build a product and to focus solely on acquisition and getting customers into the funnel, getting them converted, etc., and then giving them the standard report, the help center, whatever they need, and forgetting about them. It's very important to find ways to keep that conversation going and find ways to ask people questions at the right time, and then to action the information that you get from that. So, it could be anything as simple as, like I said earlier, we send an NPS survey email 20 days after being a pro user of Typeform. And this is something that is standard, and it goes out at that point for every pro customer. But then you can set up periodic, questions that you ask people. You might want to ask for feedback at the end of your blog articles, saying, hey, was this article useful? Tell us what else we can be writing about that's going to be useful for you. You could engage with people on social media. We do a lot of quizzes on social media, actually, built with Typeform. So we just silly things, really. We did one recently called the Impossible Quiz, which is pretty impossible. I challenge your listeners to try it out.
I'm dying to hear about it.
Check it out. It's on our Twitter page. It's maybe it's only impossible for me because I'm not that intelligent, but it's what I'm saying is you should find as many ways as possible to engage with your audience, and don't annoy people. You have to listen to people. If people say, look, you're asking me too many questions, or I'm not ready to answer this question right now, you have to listen to that, and you have to adjust your strategy based on that. Mm-hmm. Once again, I always go back to saying, think of it like a real conversation. Or one of our writers, Paul, he's always comparing these conversations to dates, the dating world. You don't go on a first date and as soon as you meet someone, say name, age, sex. You don't say that. You have a conversation with people. You start with a bit of small talk. You get to know them gradually.
Oh my gosh, hilarious!
Maybe it's not the best analogy, but I think it works.
It is.
You have to take your time with people. You have to engage with them. You have to gain their trust. Because at the end of the day, you're sending them these questions because you want information. So it's a benefit for you. If you want that information, then you have to give people the time and respect that they need as humans to want to give you that information. And I think it's as simple as that, really.
Mm-hmm. All right. I was supposed to ask you, to share the final tips or words of encouragement, but you already did. And the date metaphor is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, thanks a lot. And thank you very much for being my guest. It was fun.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having us. And keep up the good work. I'm enjoying your podcast.
Woohoo, thanks.
Business Sidekick.
All right, that's all for today. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, then you probably didn't see awesome graphics that Julia, our graphic designer, creates for every episode. That's outrageous. That's why you should visit our website, livechatting.com/podcast. And here's one of those cheesy quotes, so this episode is a little bit more spiritual. Remember, feedback is the breakfast of champions. Thanks a lot for listening, and bye-bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Lifetime.